All, all right, everybody. Welcome to Mornings with Movers. We are late this morning, but we're gonna get off to a good episode. We ain't gonna let y'all down. We got Patrick Bolton in the building, the co-founder of Move Details, and I believe he has a moving company too. What's the name of the moving company again? Pat
Boltmovers.
Bolt Movers. And you're out of where? Tell us a little about yourself.
Man, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, um,
Okay.
from Lynette, Alabama. So small town beginnings. Grew up in a really tiny town, and just made it to Auburn University. That's where my brother and we started Boltmovers by moving. One of his classmates. I know she reached out like, "Hey, we need some help with a move." We ended up getting paid by her mom, thinking like, wow, this is a lot of money to be like just working here for a couple hours. And at that point, that was like our very first move as Boltmovers. And then I remember we ended up going to the library, cutting out maybe a couple thousand Boltmovers flyers out of their printer paper, and went and
Okay.
stuck them all over the dorm rooms. And then the next morning, those apartment complexes were calling us saying, "Hey, we're going to sue you guys if you don't come remove this stuff off our property. I see that the tape is like stuck to the paint and we can't get it off." And I'm like, "Ma'am, I understand. We'll come and remove everything off you guys' property, but we're currently on a move. So like maybe this afternoon or tomorrow morning we'll be over there." But that had our phone lines ringing very quickly, like from the jump. So we had a Google Voice number, and that was the beginning of Boltmovers. And we still have some of those flyers. They are
Yeah.
very jagged in the corners. They didn't really have a lot going on other than a name and a number, and fast and detailed.
Gotcha. So you still messing up their paint over there.
Yeah,
But no, it sounds good to be solving it sounds like a good problem to be solving in the beginning. How
right.
long you been in business?
So we started Boltmovers. That was I guess 2013 was probably the year after like our initial like first move that I just mentioned. And
Hmm.
so we've been I guess going on 11 years now.
Gotcha.
Or
Okay. How many trucks would you say?
So we've got 13 trucks right now. I think we're about
Okay.
to get rid of a couple of those trucks just because we don't need those as much as we did last year. COVID years,
Hmm.
great years.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, pulling back a couple of those, but yeah, things are going great. The software is uh, definitely a much enhanced aspect of what we've done. And both of the businesses really were able to merge and help each other a lot. Um,
Oh, we ain't gonna ignore that. How did that come along?
Yeah, so that's actually like a really cool aspect. One of my friends, Andrew McCain, he was working for his dad's engineering and boiler company, and
Hmm.
he's sitting in the living room. We were roommates at the time, and he's like, whenever we do quotations on jobs, I have this Excel spreadsheet. I enter in the materials, I enter in how many like man hours we're going to need on the job, and it spits out an estimate for me. And I'm like, we don't have anything like this. At the time, we were just sending people a PDF, and we just had like a blank where we would type in a number. And that could take a couple days before you get an estimate over, and you really had no idea if you were going to be accurate or not, because most of our first estimates were like so far off, it was kind of embarrassing. and
Hmm.
and frankly, like, just out of customers being polite, they're like, well, we'll pay you a little bit more than like what you said, even though it was probably nowhere near what it should have been quoted at. Because a lot of times we were giving like just set prices and didn't realize like, hey, moving takes a lot longer than you might think. Um,
Definitely.
and another good friend of mine, the university was a blessing. I met so many friends there, and honestly, so many of the like blessings in my life have come from those relationships.
Okay.
My buddy Aren, he was in his master's program. He's from the country Turkey, and
Hmm.
his country essentially sponsored him to come live in the United States, go through a master's program. And I was just running him kind of through our business, he went and showed me a project he worked on, which was for Auburn alumni. And it was about like an Excel spreadsheet. You know, at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet, how it's got tabs.
Mm-hmm.
This Excel spreadsheet may have had like 30 plus tabs, and they were all interconnected. And I was like, holy moly, like you created all this by yourself? Like, he's like, yeah, I've been working on this as my master's program, and it helps the university raise money for essentially people wanting to donate. And so I said, is there any way you, like, I saw my friend recently with his Excel spreadsheet and he's sending out estimates. Is there any way you could create one for us that would help us with moving? And he's like, man, meet me at Chipotle tomorrow. He was like, bring me everything you need, like, and break it down for me. And I was like, I honestly didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
I wasn't the best planner in that regard. And so he ended up, we pulled up at Chipotle. He's like, where's all the information that you're supposed to be giving me? And I was like, I don't have anything. He's like, well, let me pull out a napkin. So he pulled out a napkin at Chipotle and wrote down, essentially just asked me a bunch of questions like, you know, how are you guys pricing? Like, oh, do you do it from the time you leave, or do you do it from the time like you start? And then like, all right, you're moving furniture. How do you realize like how much time it should take to move the furniture? And essentially all the furniture that we're moving, it's like there's time associated with that. And so it's a time-based system that about 3 months later, he came back to me and was like, hey, I've got this Excel spreadsheet. I think it will work for your business. And so it was probably 10 tabs deep. It had everything connected, but you would go and inventory a home and it would generate a price, and you could send emails directly from the Excel spreadsheet. And it had a Google Maps integration in the Excel, which I didn't even think was possible. He's like, you have maps, you can like do your calendar, everything. And I was like, this is amazing. We used that for about 5 years and it was amazing. It helped us, it kept us organized, but it was like computer specific. So if you didn't have it, like all the files saved on your computer, like, you know, you were having to call somebody else and say, hey, can you send that estimate? I don't have the information. I need it. And then honestly, you know, shout out to Aren. He was such a good friend to me. And he was like, man, honestly, if I had charged you for my last 3 months, I'd probably be at like 30 grand. I'm like, well, dude, I don't have 30 grand. What about like 500 bucks? And then that's when he was like, no problem. Like, you know, he's like, I was going to give it to you for free anyways. But just so you know, like this was a lot of time and effort. But he's like, you know, he's, you know, valuable friend, just looking to help me out and help my brother out. And that was kind of the beginning of the estimations. But I would say the real benefit that we saw was, all right, now that we're getting on the field, it's like when you're starting a moving company, like most of like our initial years were my brother and me and maybe a friend. And so it was oftentimes us on the truck, and then my brother would be, you know, carrying the other end of a dresser or a couch, and I'd have my phone in between my shoulder and my ear, and I'd be like, yes, ma'am. So you need to move tomorrow? Oh, next week. All right, let me, and I'm just taking these mental notes. As soon as we get in the house, I'd set it down and I'd open my text and I'd text all that information to myself. And I'd be like, well, ma'am, I'll get you an estimate. Like, give me a couple days, whatever that might be. But it was a lot of phone calls right here in between the shoulder and the ear carrying furniture.
Oh yeah, it's still like that for a lot of people.
Right. And I'm thinking of still how we were even able to manage those people's communications. I know for sure I dropped a lot of balls there where it's like, hey, I'm tired. I sent the information myself, but did I get the estimate to the person in the right amount of time? Probably not. Did I forget some and never remember to call them back? Had to. Like, there's no questions asked.
Yeah, no, and that's the early starts and laughs that we all have. It was to the point when I was on the truck and the phones were ringing as well. But at this point, I did have people in the office, and they
Right.
still would call me saying, "Hey, I just
What do we
can't figure out
do?
this estimate." So, similar to your friend, I created a spreadsheet ultimately too. And I've still been working on it after 10 years, to try to, master it. And granted, I'm not in the I actually closed down the shop last year, but it's still one of those things for even my coaching clients who don't have that aspect of thinking, or they use a CRM and the CRM gives them one quote, but then they don't know how, like, let's say it gives them a three-man quote and they don't know, oh, well, shit, I sent four guys on this job, five guys on this job. Maybe they don't know how to cube out properly. And a lot of people don't know how to cube. So, it's like, okay, well, hey, you know what? This was the ease of use for my team. And basically, only thing they had to do was put in the weight or put in the number of bedrooms. And it would just spit out a 10-man quote all the way up to a 10-man quote. So, like two all the way to 10, and they could just see it all at a glance and say, okay, well, I need four trucks here. I need this amount of here. Okay, I don't have to sit here and think and play this long game with the customer. Let me build the rapport.
Right. And let me just get the information on what I need and not be sitting there guessing because, my brother, on the other hand, he could go in and look at a house and he could tell you how many people, how many trucks, and
Mm-hmm.
like never write anything down. And he would be accurate like every time. And I still can't do it. He can go into a house, look at it and say, all right, this was like this move and I know what this move took. Boom, here's the number. Like it's going to be like, I don't know, 3,500 to 4,000. We're going to need five guys here, four guys here, whatever that might be. Again, I'm just talking. I don't know, but when he does it, I believe him, and it's always right. It's like you could just, when you see those memes where you've got a guy thinking and you got all the numbers crunching in the background.
Uh-huh.
That's him. Me, I've just got the question mark. Like, man, what do I do here? I'm like, I always relied on the system. So if I didn't plug it in, I was oftentimes wrong.
Yeah, gotcha. Are you now you big brother or little brother?
I'm little brother.
Oh, of course. Of course, the big brother got to be right. No, that's awesome. So when did you decide to go B2B with it?
We actually went B2B with it 2 years ago. So not this January, but last. And now we're in February. The months fly by.
Mm-hmm.
The time as we get older, man, each month gets a little bit shorter
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
in our relation to life. But yeah, it was I guess 2 years ago now, or and honestly, it was still like it was still in its like in initial launching days. So like you still saw like a few things that were like problems with the program. Like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
I ran this payment for this customer and then they didn't see that it went through initially. And so they pressed the button three more times. Now I charged them three times for their move. And I'm like,
Mm.
my gosh, sorry about that. But those were fun like conversations with people that were, obviously appreciative of what we produced, that said, hey, like I get it, there's an issue, but like you let me know initially, like, hey, you're kind of my initial tester as we get out. Like, yeah, we've been using this for ourselves, but if it's our own business and there's something that like glitches, like it's not a real issue because it's ours. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's somebody else and they're like, I'm not the one working on this, like I don't care if like something's off. Like I just want it to work every time. And I don't want to think about what's going on. Like people have a lot less patience for things like that unless you preemptively let them know, like, hey, you're in the first year of this
Mm-hmm.
business. So if you see anything, just let us know and we'll fix it. And so we had honestly, I'd say the best people for that because they were very patient. They were very like, when people like you as like a kid, you just always want to like tear something up or break something. You want to like test something to its limits. I had a four-wheeler. I'm like, let me see what I can do to the max. Well, these people were testing our system to the max. Like,
Nice.
let me see if I can break it. And it's like, man, how did you even manage to do that? They're like, well, I did this, and this, and like it managed to mess up something. And I'm like, all right, now we ended up fixing all of those things. I remember one of our customers, as we were like initially removing items from an inventory, like you could go and archive them in your like main list, but she was going in adding furniture. But if you like archived an item that was on an existing estimate, it would break that estimate. So if you archived it after it was already added, none of those estimates would open. Well, she went and archived several pieces after being in the system about a month. She's like, none of my customers' estimates are opening, like, and none of the ones that I have booked jobs for are opening. I'm like, oh, like that's like a real problem right there. And so, get on the phone with a developer and I'm like, hey man, we got an issue. And honestly, I've been blessed in that regard. But it's like, hey, fix is up in 20-30 minutes. Here you go.
Well, it got to be tough on you because you'd be like, oh man, you got to this from a win. Oh, I'm actually on a job right now.
Well, yeah, thankfully that didn't I haven't been on a lot of jobs due to us having an amazing team, an amazing office.
Nice.
Amanda and Mariah, shout out to you guys if y'all watch this. They really cover us, and it's fun working with them. And it's always nice when you have somebody that you can enjoy working with, and you have that same sense of humor to joke back and forth with, and we have that. But yeah, we've been I know you just asked, like, how long have we been going? A year and 2 years, and then it's like, I don't know how we got on this direction, but man, we can just keep it going.
Nice. So what is your role in the moving company now? Like, how do you see yourself now in the company?
So my brother and I essentially are still like oversight, trying to look from a way that we can constantly improve. Like we've got an office that books our moves, staffs our jobs, keeps honestly every day to day of our operation in motion without really input from us. But because you're taking that role of like not being in elbows deep and really working on your business, you're not fully benefiting the business and you're not getting the most out of it. So I think in 2024, one thing is to kind of get back into some of that aspect of like the day-to-day, really looking at everything going on, because honestly, when you build those relationships back up with your team, with your office, and really start to understand everything else a little bit more, your business starts to perform a little bit better, and it's nice. And it's also, peace of mind, as we have taken so much time off from more or less operations on the moving to dedicate time towards building software. Part of that was a need. So it's like, hey, I need to be focused on software like all the way, because it's not a small task. It's a really big feat, and it's taken the better part of 5 years to finish the product that we have. And there's been ups and downs through that, but I'd say the role in the moving company is really just mending people together. How can we build a cohesive team? And if everybody's on the same page, then the company runs better. But I'm not saying it is 100% a cohesive team. I'm saying it needs to be, and that's where I feel like our role will better suit our company.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. It just like anything else, like how you grew your moving company and you eventually scaled out of the point where you're not really in a day-to-day. Same thing with your CRM, it's just a matter of time. Once you get enough client base, get your revenue where it needs to be, it's like, hey, you know what? Let's get a person who can handle demos. Let's get a person who could do this. And then basically be able to see the 30-foot view of things, where you're just kind of managing the reports, which then paints that picture for how the company's performing. And obviously everybody hates that about, the big owners, because they're like, oh, they're just, looking at the numbers. They don't really see what's really going on. They're not on the ground. But hey, we can't always be on the ground, because if we're so close to it, we can't really see how it's performing because we're in it, not looking at it, kind of thing.
Right. And I mean, there's aspects of that are true. And like, if you get to that position, it's because, in my opinion, it's because you were all the way in. because
Mhm.
you're not going to grow a company and it be exceptional if you weren't 100% dedicating yourself towards it. So it's like, hey, if you want a moving company, like you're not going to be able to just start a moving company and be it, a 30,000 foot view.
What? Nah, I'm joking.
Like you're just, am I like, it could be done, but do I think it's probably likely? I don't think so. I
Yeah,
think
unless you have
you
some
really
type of
need to
experience.
understand what their people are going through. And I mean, yeah, like you could throw enough money at something for it to work, but that doesn't like even with the software, with the moving, it's like where do we see our best performance? Where do we see our customers being the happiest on both sides? It's, when you're really making sure that everything's going well. And it's like if you weren't in on the ground and doing the work, you can't really lead somebody to do that, in my opinion, if you don't know what you're talking about. So,
Mhm.
hey, if you're going to be in a demo role, or if you're going to be in like a moving company owner, like if you've never done a move, it's, in my opinion, kind of difficult to tell somebody like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, like on the move, or like, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night and you're telling me you're tired and you can't get the dresser upstairs. I'm like, well, you can. I've been there at 11:30 at night and I got it upstairs. Like, and so I've been there at 1:30 and 2:30 at night finishing up a job. Like, you can do it. I know you're tired. Take a second, grab your water, grab that dresser and make it up the stairs.
Mhm.
But like, if I never experienced that myself, I'd be like, well, man, he must be tired. I'm sitting at home on my chair, like like I'm eating dinner right now, or whatever that might be. It's like, if you can't relate, like it's hard to, coach your team through those positions.
Yeah, funny story that you mentioned that I was in Florida last year, and Florida, beautiful weather all the time, besides when it rains and stuff. But I was in Florida, I think it was about like 70, 80 degrees. And in New York, it was like -3 degrees. And my team was like, my dispatcher at the time reached out saying, "Hey, the trucks won't start. The trucks won't start. We got two moves today, and the trucks won't start." And I'm like, okay, because even though we're supposed to be plugging the trucks in at night, we never did. It was just like we go in blind faith, hoping that the diesel trucks will start in the morning.
Right.
And I was like, well, we're gonna have to cancel the moves. You guys just can't go out and do the moves. It's -3 degrees out, anyways. So they call the customer. The customers are furious. Like, oh, I turned my power off. I need to move. What's going on? Blah, blah. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, kind of cold. It seems kind of cold up there, like, but I'm in 80-degree weather thinking like they should understand. But when
Right.
I but when I was back in New York at the time, when I was doing the -7-degree office days and doing going out on moves, hey, I was in it. So I was kind of like, okay, and hey, we're gonna get it done. But now when I'm away from it, I'm kind of like, that sounds like torture. I don't want to put my guys through that.
Right. But at the same time, that's where you're like, hey, look, we're going to get these trucks jumped off. I don't want customers mad at me. Let's get out and make some money today.
Yeah, sadly, those trucks did not want to start that day. So
All
I was
right.
like, you know what, we're gonna have to schedule this for Sunday and make it happen. And that was one of the reasons why I think strategy wise, we never worked 7 days a week. We always had, the seventh day off,
Yes.
because if we needed to make some arrangements and changes, we needed to have that flexibility versus like, oh well, we can't fit you in this week. We're completely booked. We're gonna have to schedule for next week. Well, people can't wait for next week. That's why they ain't booked the week after.
Right. Yeah, same thing with the trucks not starting. It's like if you're not in and you don't understand the day to day, like we had one truck and I don't know what it is, but if you want it to crank on certain occasions, you got to hold the key in the on position for like 30 seconds. And I remember this because I was on a job and I'm like, please don't tell me after the job finished, I'm not going to be able to get in my truck and leave. I'm going to have to get it towed. This sounds like the day was ending perfectly, but now I can't get the truck to start. And I just kept holding the key in the on position, just praying,
Yeah.
dear Lord, I know you don't want me to get the truck towed today. I know you want me to let drive home. Cranks. I'm like, well, that was perfect. So guys call, they're like, hey, the truck won't crank. I'm like, which truck number are you in? I like, perfect. hold the key in the on position for about 30 seconds. And I'm on the phone and I can, about 30 seconds later, I hear it turn over. I'm like, there we go.
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah, better not turn it off. Yeah, better come straight back to the office. All
Right.
right, nice, nice. So I guess have you not, I guess, well, I'm sure you had to at this point. So with the growth of your CRM business, are you seeing, I guess, the major players out there, and where do you feel like you want to be in the near future?
So I think as we continue, the initial growth of Move Details was key to make sure we test the product across a slew of different moving companies and watching them operate it in multiple different like ways, use all the different features. And then as we've continued to develop, we just really want to have a simple product. I know there's multiple different things out there. And I would say that, we're focused on making sure people have a clean, efficient, healthy experience with the software, something that doesn't need a lot of explaining. And I think that's what we have produced at this point. And so people that are using it, from what I gather, and again, this is their experience just telling me, it's like it doesn't take as long to pick up and learn as other CRMs that are existing. So there's a smaller learning curve. And as you do demos of people and you're trying to, coach them on software, you're always looking to see like where their question points come up. And it's like, if there was a question, the software was not direct enough about what to do next. And so making sure that people don't have to ask questions as they're utilizing the software, making it easier for onboarding, making it easier for, companies to want to switch, because you've got people that are using software and ultimately you just have to get them to try something out new for a while before they realize like, hey, I'm willing to switch. People, they learn something and they say like, all right, now that I've learned this, I just don't want to do it again, because the first time they learn, it was so difficult and they had to jump through so many hoops to figure out how to use this software. And they're thinking doing another software is going to be the same thing until they get in and realize like, this is not nearly as difficult as what I'm used to. And that's when they really appreciate what we offer. So,
Yeah.
From a just simplicity side and, just a really great functioning software that helps you run your company and ultimately keeps you in the loop and makes you operate more efficiently, makes you profit more on jobs, and just overall helps. Like, I remember one of the first times we were adding on like mood protection on jobs. So like upselling valuation. And
Mm-hmm.
I had never done this before. And like ultimately we had never done like specialty fees on certain items, whether it be pianos. We had never done like TV protection, which is, valuation doesn't properly cover TVs. And so selling additional TV protection based on like the size of their TV. And I remember we added these on based on inventories, and then the move protection was a requirement upon booking. And you get to the end of the job and you look at the invoice and you're like, oh man, there's $350 added onto this invoice from move protection, a specialty item, and TV protection. And you're like, well, that was cool. And then you look at another invoice, you're like, there's 500 plus bucks on this invoice. You're like, there's 200. And it's like, you're seeing like an average of, 300 plus bucks on jobs. And you're like, well, this is convenient. I didn't even think this was possible.
No, it makes sense. I think I I've heard of selling valuation. I heard a lot of guys saying, "Hey, we made about 180,000 across the year and just
Yeah.
selling valuation." And for me and some others that I've always networked with, I've always felt like it puts it in the back of the mind that the customer, is almost adamant to want to file a claim because, you're selling protection
Yeah.
for them versus just saying, well, hey, I really, those guys really did a good job. They didn't charge me any extra. It's just like anything else. If you add protection to your phone, you can't wait till your phone kind of breaks. You're like, hey, I'm going to use my insurance on my phone. So I feel like it's almost putting it in their mind. Now, some people do charge deductibles, so they make a little bit more money on top of it when they sell a valuation. But if you got zero deductibles, I feel like that customer is probably going to file a claim on the smallest of pieces.
Yeah, I disagree in that because if you have a good team and your team are taking care of business, like customers aren't going to go out of their way to like find problems. I feel like where you run into problems there is you're selling valuation, but then your teams aren't doing what they need to do on the job site. And so as soon as the customer starts to notice something's off, like, hey, they're not paying attention to the level I would like them to, or like they had some slight annoyance on the job, then that's when they start looking. But if you have a pleasant experience through and through, I don't think you're going to have issues with people claiming valuation. Obviously, there are going to be outliers to that example, but I would say from my experience, we're not getting like any higher claim rate on moves that have valuation versus those that don't.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
So,
as soon
but
as they start to see something wrong, like let's say, you had like a piece of glass that went on top of a furniture, or like a small mirror. Like let's say like that, like one thing broke. Like, yeah, they're gonna mention like, hey, I had like this mirror break, no problem. We'll pay for that, get that taken care of. Now, if that were it, then they would want that mirror protected. But let's say not only did that mirror break, but now there's like a black smudge on their white couch. Well, now there's two things that they're concerned of. And because of the second one, now they're going to go start looking for other problems because they think that probably if they uncovered two things already, they're probably thinking a lot more going on. So then maybe they didn't even notice there were like things wrong with the other pieces of furniture. And they're going to go start looking, and maybe it was already there, maybe it wasn't, but you have this thought of like, if somebody's done two things wrong already, like, hey, if I go on a Delta flight today and they're like, well, man, they forgot to like close the door properly, and then something like, hey, I didn't get the thing I asked for while I was on the flight. Well, let's say now you're like really concerned for like your safety in the air. Now, like, you're seeing these plane doors fly off. It's like the same thing with moving. It's like if you didn't ever see an issue, you're not going to go looking for one. But now, like, I'm like, oh, if I get on this plane, is the back door going to fly off? Because I saw it happen on another one.
it makes sense. It makes sense. I guess it's how you look at it, and then it also depends. Like I feel like New York State and California, I feel like restriction wise is very, very tight. And I'm not too sure
I'm
about
not sure
Cali.
about those.
I'm not sure about Cali, but New York I know about. So, as far as New York goes, when it comes to selling valuation, there's restrictions on how much you could sell it for.
Okay.
And I believe it was like 50 cents per $100 declared. So if a customer says, hey, I want maybe like $60,000 in coverage or $100,000 in coverage, maybe, and this is just throwing out a number, but it was like you could only sell it for like $500.
Yeah.
So you like the exposure risk of me making $500 to cover this person up to $100,000 in case something happened don't sound logical, you know.
Right.
So that's why I was like, you know what? Let me just outsource this. If they wanted to buy valuation, I'll outsource it to relocation insurance. Let them take care of it because even with relocation insurance, they're gonna say, well, hey, oh, they want $100,000. Oh, well, if you want to take the policy on their behalf, maybe we'll charge you $650. And you still start to think, I'm not making any money off of that because only thing I would have made was $500. So you're just like, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother deal with it. It's not. I'll throw my hands up. You know what? We'll stick to if they want to pay for it, they pay for it to them. We'll sell the either the 30 cents or 60 cents per pound plus whatever other valuation options we had to offer the customers. But we're gonna kind of wash our hands with that and make sure that we don't put ourselves at risk because of whatever the market that we're in and customers we know. They want to help you move stuff and then let's say it gets snagged on the doorway while the husband's carrying something with you, and they're like, "Oh, well, you guys did it, so you guys got to pay for it." We don't want to put ourselves in situations like that.
Right. Right. That always boggles my mind when a customer breaks some, like that's only happened once, but we had a customer move a vase in their car. And then they were like, it broke. And we're like, you moved it. They were like, but you guys were moving us. And like, we have like protection through you guys. Like, well, we use that protection in events that we caused the damage. Since we didn't cause the damage, I don't know if you want to take a look down at this line on the policy that you signed, but we're currently not the ones that damaged it. So I'm sorry, we're not paying you for that.
Oh, that conversation is always fun.
Right.
We had one customer we moved on New Year's Eve, and she was a rushy because hey, it's New Year's Eve. Well, you should have wanted to move last minute, but whatever. So we were getting everything in her house, and her house is very small. So we kind of like when we got her circle table, glass tabletop in the house, we kind of put it on the couch because we knew we wouldn't put anything else on the couch. And we knew we were backing stuff into the house, so we didn't want to bump into anything and knock it over. So we did that, and then I think our second or third trip back into the house, I'm backing in with a piece, 2-man piece with my cousin or so, and all of a sudden I bumped something, and all of a sudden it was the glass top that hit the floor, and she had put the tabletop on the table, on top of the table, like to set it, and I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, you see that we're still moving stuff in, and then, are you going to dare file a claim? Because, obviously we positioned stuff so that we wouldn't worry about damaging it. And you're sitting here setting stuff up while we're trying to move stuff in. So
Right.
it's just weird situations that people put us in.
Yeah, that makes things difficult there. It's like we want to be aware of like where we're walking, but at the same time, like you put it out of the way. And like I'm sitting here thinking, like, crap, what would I do in that position? Like I want to like help her out. Like I do realize I'm the one that broke it, but also put it out of the way so that I wouldn't. And now you made
Exactly.
it in the way. And right. Yeah, that's a tricky one right there.
So, but I think there was another situation where we had to move a guy's nice mahogany dresser up the stairs, and it was a labor only job.
Yeah.
So we didn't bring any pads or anything like that. He got a U-Haul truck, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I just need you guys to load it or unload it, whatever the case is." And he had got no pads from U-Haul or nothing. He just got the truck. So and then the landlord told him he couldn't use the front stairs, which was, finished walls, finished stairs, everything. So he had to use the back concrete stairs, concrete walls, raw, let's just say raw. So I was like, okay, but you have no blankets, sir. And there's this dresser, you can't just carry straight up. You have to kind of lean it and carry it, and it's heavy to begin with. So I'm like, there's a high chance this dresser can get damaged going up these stairs, but we will do our best if you want us to move it. He's like, yeah, I needed to get up there anyways. So hence we try to get it up there. We did scratch it up a little bit because it slipped. And we told him, hey, we had an accident with it or whatever the case is. We told you it was set to happen, but we would do our best. And he started flipping out like, "Oh, well, you guys owe me a dresser. You did it. You da. And I'm like, sir, I would feel bad if I didn't make the initial awareness point to let you know that this could happen. And even though we try to be as safe as possible, stuff can happen.
Right.
And ultimately, it's like, oh, who's your boss? Oh, what's their number? I'm going to call. Well, sir, you're going to get me when you call, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. So I don't want you to waste your dial, And he was so mad, and ultimately, I was worried that he wouldn't even pay us for the rest of the move. But he ultimately paid us, and was so mad at that. Ultimately, I just said, sir, you just have a good day. Kill him with kindness. And I left, and then eventually, probably like 5 minutes as we was going to the office, and we was ranting about how he was just so rude. He just calls back and says, "I'm so sorry that I was rude." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no problem," And but I think it's just making people aware of what
Yeah.
could happen.
Right.
Saved you.
If you do that, like, you've done your job. You communicated properly. Like uh nobody's gonna be like surprised in the end per se. It's like, hey, I can get this leather couch down your hallway. It's really thin, but like, you have white walls. This is dark brown leather. It's possible that brown leather might like smudge all over the walls. Like, I don't know. But if you're willing like to take that risk, I'll push it down the hallway. I'll get it into the room you want it to, but I'm a little bit worried. I don't want to go until you give me the go ahead. And as soon as they give you the go ahead, go for it. And then make sure they're there to like, hey, like, it either did or it didn't, but like, you made the call. Just keep in mind, you are the CEO of this decision. It is your house. It is your furniture. You're making the final decision in these situations, but always trying to find a way to make sure that customers don't have to go through those pain points is ideal.
No, definitely. And I think for me, like it just keeps sparking this memory, but I had to drive an hour away to service one customer, labor only one time. And it's fine, but we drove the hour away and the customer was moving into their new house, their new apartment. Why did they have painters there? I do not know. So the painters are, painting the house. It's like, oh, so you're going to have your house painted while you're moving in, huh? Okay. So there's like, yeah, it just so happened that they had to come on today or whatever the case is. Well, you sure you don't want to reschedule because just a rub of paint, your furniture is it's a wrap. So there's like, no, just do your best not to touch the walls. Oh yeah, this type of move. Okay. So, of course, and they wanted their love boy moved upstairs around the L-shaped corner, painted walls. Okay. Okay. So we tried to get it up there, got some paint on the top of the love boy. I said, oh snap, we got some paint. Let's go get some water so we could, kind of try to get it off before it dries. Their water's not on. Oh, okay, great. They're like, yeah, the landlord didn't turn the water on at this point yet. They said probably tomorrow or so they'll have the water on. I feel like this was set up for disaster. Like, like you could have just left your stuff
Kind of
outside
was.
the apartment or something.
Not a lot of planning going on there.
But that's the situations we get put into, and it's just like, we gotta make it work. We had to put sofas on top of trucks to get them down because the one building, I guess the building was so small you couldn't put furniture in the elevator, big furniture in the elevator, and you couldn't carry down the stairs. So they was like, so we was like, how did you get this stuff in here? And they were like, oh, well, we had to go carry the stuff to another apartment and put it over the balcony and then hoist it down or hoist it up. That's not safe, right? They're like, yeah, but we got to get it out of here some way, whatever the case is. So, we won't file any claim if anything happens to it. Nobody wants to hear that. Like, what the hell? Like, we came in to do a great job, and we got to do stuff like this. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
they want you to go through the neighbor's balcony and then hoist it down.
Well, it was a mock apartment, so it was like just a pre-designed apartment, so that basically somebody who's looking at it like a lease tenant,
Yes.
they can just see it. So the landlord or whoever it was, the rental property manager said, hey, you guys can use this apartment, carry it through, be safe, and then basically bring it out, put it over the balcony on top of your truck that's outside already, and then slide it down, hand it to your guys. They'll put it in the truck. Okay, sounds fun. And this is all happening cold days. It's not happening in the summer.
Right. And I have very little experience working in the cold. Only a couple times. I mean, it's been cold, but it's not snow and cold at the same time. We don't ever get snow down in Alabama.
Oh, you're now. Oh, okay.
I mean,
I was
I'm in
thinking.
Atlanta, Georgia, but like when I was on most of the moves, those were mostly in Alabama.
Okay, have you came to New York yet and experienced this cold weather?
Man, I have just not moving. I was there last year about this time, and I think it was like feels like -17. It was super cold, like 3 hoodies. Like I didn't have a big black puffer jacket like most of the New Yorkers.
Oh yeah, I've never been to the windy city of Chicago though, and I heard that they get colder than we do.
Yeah,
So,
I've
so
experienced the Chicago cold as well. And you know, when their little creek that runs through the middle of Chicago turns to ice, it's like, man, this is real cold now. It's like icebergs are out here.
gotcha, gotcha. So okay, so what do you feel like? Obviously, the industry is not doing as still not doing as good as it should be doing because of the housing market being a thing still. So I guess do you feel you and your brother has been trying to get through these challenging times to stay afloat? And do you have any future plans for the rest of this year?
And you know, at the end of the day, brother and I always say like, and I'm not saying we stayed true to this course throughout the entire existence of our company. We've definitely gone through challenging times, as and I think any owner does owning a business, and us never being employees of any other company. You know, outside of working at restaurants during college, we've always worked for ourselves, uh,
Mhm.
and I think at the end of the day, if you treat people right and you do good work, then you'll always have a space in the market. And I think that we've seen that time and time again with just people continuing to support our business because they've had a good experience. And uh, I'm thinking back to a move we had just the other week. It was Instagram like influencer, where in the initial move they requested like a compensation or like a discount for like posting per se. And so we did the move, gave them I believe we did like half off the cost. We don't ever do anything like fully free, even with influencers. It's like, you know, if you want something fully free, like go find somebody else. Like there's still value. We want you to realize like you're paying for a good service. And if somebody's willing to do it for free, maybe they do want the exposure. But uh, recently they removed again, paid full price, didn't ask for any reduction, and posted all about us on Instagram. And it just goes to show like, hey, they weren't just using us for a discount. It was like they wanted us because they had a good service. And at the end of the day, it's continue to take care of people, have a good
Mhm.
team, take care of your team, pay them well, and make sure you're advertising well. And I'm not saying we've always done all these things right. I think we've had ups and downs in our business, and it's fun to go back and look um, and see how things have transpired. And then ultimately going and meeting a lot of people at the Massaro event uh, 2 years ago in Arizona. I thought that was very beneficial. I wish we had done that, honestly, year 2 or 3. I think that we would have missed a lot of the mistakes that we made because, we were trying to coach ourselves everything, and we didn't learn from anybody in moving other than ourselves. And that just doesn't lend itself to success. It's like find somebody that's a mentor, find somebody that can help you, and like don't recreate the wheel entirely. Like
Gotcha.
learn from others.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I know there's probably an event going on this year. I don't know if I'm gonna make it this year, but I may make
The
it this year.
you moving Titan retreat.
No, not that one. That one is going on, which is for everybody. It's in March. So if you definitely are interested in going to Moving Titles Retreat, reach out to Chad Coatney or Wade Swerkel. And yeah, it's a great event. They're going to have a lot of big people there. So definitely check in and tune into that. Um,
Right,
but
that will be a good event.
yeah, it looks like it's going to be a great event. Other than that, but I know, like I said, Louis Mazzaro is probably going to have his event this year as well. Sometime this year. I haven't really been paying too much attention, but it's usually either in the fall, or either in the spring or the fall. But I haven't heard anything about the anything coming up in March about that. So it's probably going to be in the fall. But yeah, that's where everybody usually is at. So it's like, hey, might as well go out and network and have a great time.
Right. Yeah, it helps a lot hearing from other people's stories, their failures, their wins, and taking their losses as your losses. You don't need to do the same loss to learn. Learn
Hmm.
from somebody else's mistakes.
Definitely. But I would say one of the things, I found that people are underutilizing, depending on who your niche is, especially for CRMs and stuff like that, is that, and I think I brought it up to one of the other guys a few weeks back ago, is um people are definitely forgetting about record retention.
Yeah.
And in New York State, they don't care. They'll audit you if you don't have your old records. They pretty much fine you, and it could be up to $10,000 easily. And basically, what it's saying is that, let's say I switched from another CRM and I came over to Move Details, and
Yes.
they my all my past bill of ladings didn't come over. Just the record that there was a job and the value of that job came.
Well, you can have that imported. We do a import for customers that are moving in, and that will keep your customer's information, move date, cost of the job, and essentially you'll have full record of that. We moved somebody's information over recently from another CRM, and it's keeping track of the hourly rates they had on the job, like how many hours it was, what was the final cost of the job, where were the addresses, like
Mhm.
it's got pretty much everything other than the inventory.
Well, no, so I get what you're saying, and I think most CRMs do that. It's just that physical signature on that bill of lading
Ah,
that was digitally signed.
yes.
That PDF document does not transfer over, and I think
No.
that people are losing, and people are not trying to go back at that point. Oh, I was with this other CRM for 3 years. Let me download
Yeah.
all of those PDFs. They're
Yeah.
not. And when in New York State, if you get audited, sometimes they want the last 3 months. Oh, give me last 3 months of random bill of ladings. And you're like, well, I just transferred over like a month ago. I don't have last 3 months.
I guess at that point you got to tell them like I didn't have anything in the last 3 months. And what do they have to say that you did? I mean,
Oh,
it's your records against your records, right?
that is true. They're gonna be like, oh, so you didn't have no jobs in 2 to 3 months ago.
I
Like,
did
nope,
not.
I am a brand new company. Oh, you've been around for 10 years. You ain't had no jobs in 3 months.
No, sir. Had no jobs. Yeah, look at my system. There's nothing here to show you.
So nah, that's something definitely interesting. Also, I think another thing is reports. And a lot of people don't know what they're looking at. So a lot of these younger CRMs, and I'm not gonna mention any names, but a lot of these young CRMs do not have, enough report details to tell you or paint the picture of how your business is actually performing. But a
Right.
lot of people don't know what to look at anyways. So they're just like,
True. Right. The reporting's definitely been helpful. And honestly, it was a lot of requests by other people that were using the system. It wasn't even something that we were dialing in and really utilizing to our benefit. But ultimately reporting was all of our graphs now are so beautiful, and you can see like calls in and out, you can see emails being sent, you can see all the reporting of all the jobs you're selling, move protection, TV protection, and surcharges on. And I'm like, oh, so over the last 30 days we made an extra 10,000. Like, that's nice. Like,
exactly.
and I see that was all from add-ons, and like it shows that it works. Or hey, I want to report on or my mailing campaign's working well. It's like, oh well, in the last 30 days we had 60 people that requested quotes from houses we sent something to in the mail, and
Mhm.
those 60, 10 of them booked, and of those 10 there's $30,000 in jobs. And it's like, well, that works. Like, that's nice. And you can clearly see like what work you're putting out there is paying off. And so for us, that was always like very helpful to say, like, all right, we are spending this money on in marketing dollars towards this mailing campaign. Like, how effective is that mailing campaign? Like, I'm spending money on it, but like, how much money am I getting in return? And so
Mhm.
tracking those mailing dollars has been very helpful. And
Definitely.
it's so easy because it's just matching an address. So like, you call in, if I send something to your house, like as soon as I type your address in, it matches it right away.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wish all the success on the future growth and continue to keep growing that CRM and hopefully to see it up there with the top names, in the near future. Did you want to leave your calling card for people that may be interested?
Yeah, movedetails.com, move details on Instagram, and Dwight Mac, man, appreciate it. Love talking with you today.
Definitely, definitely. All right, everybody. So we are out. We will see you next week. Enjoy your week. Keep pushing, keep pushing. We are in February. The busy season is right around the corner. So just keep preparing, get ready for the busy season. And everybody, you're going to thrive this year, 2024. All right.
Let's go. Good to see you, buddy.
Definitely, definitely.